This mystery begins with a guy working late hours in his office and looks at two workers desperately, who looked as if they were going to have lots of good times soon. Not too long after, a man named Wyatt, who is his colleague, meets him before leaving the office. It was clear the nerd did not have a fun life. They sat along and the man talked to Wyatt how his life was full of mess since childhood and how his mother died when he was just 19-year-old. Basically, this guy is poor and worked very hard every day. The name of this guy is revealed to be Jonathan, who really had a great talk and laugh after smoking some weed with Wyatt. He leaves the office and get back on his way to home. However, his eyes catches a beautiful woman. She asks him a question about the train and they both get into it. The woman leaves on a stop, while he kept looking at her desperately. His life was nothing more than a ball of same routine, but soon enough something was going to change his whole life around. Back in his office, Wyatt takes a look at him and asks if his day is off tomorrow. We can see them both playing badminton and have some excitement in John's life. Upon walking back to the locker room, Wyatt asked him if he slept with any women in his life. As expected, he answered 4. Wyatt knew the only problem in him was not getting those women he was desperate about. Back in Wyatt's house, he looks around at everything with wonder. Suddenly, Wyatt gives him a nice suit to wear and explains he was his own worst enemy. We can see them sitting and enjoying a local club, where John catches a woman looking at him, which excites him a lot. Wyatt also tells him that women got urges too, just like himself. Soon Wyatt leaves along with a beautiful woman and goes inside a hotel, leaving John astonished. Next day, after some work, he meets Wyatt in his lunchtime, where Wyatt leaves in hurry for a meeting. However, they accidentally picks up each other's phones. John finds out about this in the elevator upon getting a call. He sees it is from a private number. However, the calls does not stop coming and keep pouring in from different women who sounded really interested to have some great time. He sends Wyatt a voicemail for the mistake they made. He finally gets another call on the cell phone, asking if he could come at a hotel called Dylan, and the woman cuts the call. John smiled and went ahead with the proposal and reached a hotel in no time. Finally, a mature and good-looking woman walks over him and asks him to go into the room. Inside the room, she started to take away her clothes, but John nervously started to explain to her that he was not Wyatt. This had no effect on the women and they did the inevitable for the whole night. John wakes up in the morning with a smile on his face. Later, he gets Wyatt's call, who was laughing and suggests him to use his phone as he pleases and get back to the meeting. This was so good to be true, but something must be wrong here, which John was not able to suspect yet. At work, it was hard for him to focus, because he was still thinking about the phone and women. He calls a new woman and initiates the call at a local hotel, to which the woman agrees. Upon reaching the hotel, he finds a woman with older age than himself. However, she was confident and beautiful. While going back to the room, woman asks if he knew the rules to all this, but he had no idea, and they enter the room and have a great time and some talk. Night by night, he was meeting different women and having the time of his life. It has become a game for Jonathan, and the beast inside him has awakened. It felt as if he had become a magnet to women. One day he was waiting for a woman and comes inside a room. There he explains he had seen her earlier at the train station. He did not want to have romance with her, but asked her if she was hungry, and they eat together and decide to talk for a while. They play a game of guessing each other's name and had a fun conversation as if he liked the women a lot. John asks her out to see her again and watches her as if she was some sort of treasure he had found. Next morning he wakes up and finds a fun note left by the women. Suddenly, he gets a call from Wyatt and tells him about the girl from last night. But Wyatt was afraid if they could get along since they met through the list. John was waiting for the call of the same women, and finally his dream comes true when the call arrives. He reaches Chinatown and finds the same women, who gifts him a small present, a scarf. They were finally on a date, where John explains how he waited for her for a month just to spend some time with her. John's beast was long gone. He was feeling something for her. Later, she tells him that she does not want to make his life a mess. However, he wanted all the complications she had in her life, and they end up kissing passionately. We can see them finally in a room, having some romantic and cute moments. The girl wanted to get some ice for the drinks, but being afraid she will leave instead, he himself left the room to get the ice. Upon coming back to the room, he finds no one, but some blood on top of the bed sheet. Suddenly, he gets hit by a man with a mask. He wakes up and sees no one around and looks for the women, or anyone for the matter of fact, and panics a lot. Finally, police arrives and question him about the incident and the pleasure club he was in. However, there was not much he could explain. The police assures him that she checked in with the receptionist, that no one checked into the room except him, and the blood was also his. While he could not understand any of it, he closely looked at a trophy, which reminds him of Wyatt, who he calls in a while and leave him a voicemail and ask him to meet him. He comes back to his office and asks for Wyatt Bose, but nobody knew about any Wyatt Bose ever existed in the office. He goes back to Wyatt's apartment. However, there was someone totally different living there. All this was taking a toll on him, because this was unbelievable. Wyatt, however, comes into his bedroom mysteriously and suggests him to move around some dirty money from unknown dirty accounts to his, and threaten him to do it or he was going to hurt the love of his life. John finally meets a woman by using Wyatt's phone. However, upon reaching the location, the woman was hesitant and did not want to have romantic moments with him because he was not the one she waited for. She later explains how she met Wyatt in Chicago and she was the one to tell him about the list. She called him again because he was so good at romantic moments. His real name is Jamie Getz, says the woman. John started to research about the name Jamie Getz on the internet, but there wasn't much he could find about him. It was totally another man who was Jamie Getz. He gets some information and the badge number of a detective from his database and calls an officer to get some info on Jamie Getz and finally gets a fax of the info. Jamie has been to jail for insurance fraud in the past. He gets a call from Jamie, who asks him to do as he asked. However, John tells him everything about his past, which indeed leave him stunned. We can see him living at the front building of the Jonathans. At last, the cop asks him some questions about a body of a woman who had been strangled recently. It was the same woman he slept with for the first time, but he tells the cops that he does not know her. Things got more twisted when John found out his photos along with the same dead women from his own house. Cops were also suspicious at him. Later on, Jamie comes on the train station and threatens him to do what he asks for or his girlfriend will be gone forever. He gives him a deadline of 6 p.m. or the inevitable will happen. John goes back into the office and mentally gets ready for the obvious. He finally gets the instruction to do all the task sent by Jamie Getz. It was clear that all this was really a millions of dollars fraud with a big mindset behind. While John was working his way up to execute the fraud in time, Jamie sends a picture of his girlfriend to intimidate him a little more. His boss also comes in his way, which distract him a little. However, he leaves and the work was soon done. It seemed as if no one suspected anything of it. Finally, John began to travel back to his apartment upon getting a text from Jamie Getz. He was about to take the elevator, but John notices that the girl was not inside his house. Meanwhile, a blast happens inside John's apartment, where John was found dead and it was suspected by the cops that it was a gas leak. We can see Jamie Getz traveling and acting as he himself was Jonathan. He come across a big mansion, where the same woman is present who kisses him, and it is revealed that all this was a big plan of them. However, the woman was a bit upset about everything. Women was shocked to hear that Jamie Getz took his life and made it look like an accident. Jamie suspects that she is also in love with the accountant John, to which she began to apologize. Jamie was acting like he was a psychopath and forcefully do something to the women. We are moved to another scene, where we can see Jamie acting as Jonathan ready to take away his money from his bank account. However, he gets to know that to be able to release the money, he will have to get the sign of the co-signer, who was no other than Wyatt himself, which meant real Jonathan set everything up and is still alive. Upon getting out of the bank, he gets a call and meets Jonathan, who asks him to give him half the money. They both go inside and finally the deal is made. Jonathan, however, was still looking for the love of his life and makes a deal with Jamie. If he tell him about her, Jonathan will give him half of his fortune, to which he agrees. However, Jamie's intentions were cruel and decided to take away his life. Suddenly, the same woman comes in the way and shoots him from behind. Real Jonathan leaves Jamie behind along with his bag and try to get along with the women, but she flees from the spot. Meanwhile, cop also finds out that the body inside the apartment was no other than Jonathan's landlord, who got taken away from Earth by mistake. It's been a while since the incident. Jonathan was walking all alone, when one day his eyes catches the same women and they get along in the end. Like and subscribe for more mystery and thriller movie recaps like this.